Wait, so I thought you said we were going to introduce ourselves.
Nah.
Kia ora, guys. Welcome back to Study Time's Wholesome Half Hour 2020 edition. Back with the same people again, so McKenzie and Saeran. And on today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is motivation around this period of time, being in lockdown, being in quarantine, and sort of trying to, keep things going as best we can during this time. So, yeah, I mean, how have you been keeping going, Saeran?
Yeah, I've been all right. Just in my daily workout, my on-demand workout. Not the same as being at the gym, but got to do something. We'll go for my daily 90-minute walk later in the evening.
I respect that. That is...
It was very cold yesterday. My fingers were very cold.
I have not even done that once. I'm such a hermit. I'm embarrassed now, but that's okay. Cool. I guess, yeah. So you say
that's how I'm doing. How are you doing, McKenzie?
I'm not doing that. I mean, I feel very cool down right now, but let's talk about motivation.
Sure.
I don't want to talk about me anymore. Yeah, no, I've definitely been staying motivated though, just not in working out and stuff. I've definitely been. I think the thing I'm most proud of, in terms of actually keeping up some kind of habits and any kind of discipline, is getting up at a fairly similar time each day and immediately having a shower before I go and try and do anything else, because if anybody listens to this for a while, that they know that I'm very prone to just sitting in a dressing gown until absurdly late times of the day. So that I have been proud of, actually.
That's very good. I'm waking it sounds simple and it's one of those cliche things you hear all the time, but definitely waking up at a consistent time every day and having that consistent time not be 11 o'clock, it actually makes a huge difference. And the thing you have to consider as well mentally is most people have sidelined kind of 9 to 5 for work. It's very unlikely you're going to be oh, it's 7 p.m. Let's start doing my schoolwork now. So by waking up early, you set yourself up to take advantage of that mental productive time.
Yeah, no, and I think with that as well, I'm someone who's quite prone anyway to waking up kind of earlier, just for the fact that I feel I lose half my day. And that's not to mean that you can't have sleep-ins and mess about and just do nothing for days and stuff like that. But I'd rather get up earlier more often than not, I guess, is a better way to frame it. But anyway, in terms of actual keeping motivated and making motivated tips, I do think creating habits or creating some kind of routine that does work for you is probably one of the most integral things to this. It's something that will underpin your kind of ability to make sure you are doing things throughout the day. And I'm awful at planning, admittedly. I'm constantly working on it, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly not my strong suit. But the ease in which you go through your day when you have a plan and the amount more things you can actually do within a day is a lot, I would argue, a lot more.
And I guess that the thing that a lot of people struggle with getting things done in this new state is finding motivation and finding that productive zone. So that's what McKenzie and I were thinking about today, is we could go through some things you can do to boost your motivation and just think about what you can do to find motivation, to find the productivity and get things done, get through some of that skill work and keep your learning going.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think with all of this, it can be a bit dependent on yourself. I think and I think we always disclaim a lot of our advice with this. It's strategies that you should take on, but find it in the way that works for you best. So when a lot of these things that the tips and stuff we give are very tailored, you can tailor it for yourself. So very much encourage people to actually sort of really think about these things for themselves and finding their kind of motivation and stuff. And the reason I sort of lead with that is because one of the sort of first tips in finding motivation in the first place is to kind of go back a little bit, or think of it a little bit more macro, about what you're learning and why, and sort of the value of actually learning what you're learning, and but also thinking about how it relates to you, how it interests you, how maybe it opens your eyes to things in the world that you wouldn't have understood otherwise. And I think this is like a chance that you can sort of take that time to reflect on why learning is such a valuable tool for yourself and why it is something that you can like pursue for your own interests, and what you learn doesn't have to look like somebody else's, but you're still engaging in that process.
Yeah, definitely finding that, I guess finding the why a little bit and thinking about why you do, like why you go to school and what you're trying to achieve at the end of it. That can definitely make a big difference. Kind of finding that mental motivation. I guess once you start to, you find your purpose and you're starting to get the ball rolling. I guess the next thing you can do to, keep that motivation going is set goals. Like, and I'd recommend doing that like on a weekly basis and on a daily basis as well. I know one of the things I do is every morning, like before I start working, is like I get my notebook, I put the date at the top, and like I write down like a few of the activities I want to do during the day, and sometimes I'll even like make it into like an hour by hour schedule. And that kind of allows you to leverage that motivation that you've just created by thinking about why you want to do it, and then think about the things you want to do and sort of make a plan. And then one by one, you can hit them off, and that can make you stay motivated because you can see, oh, I've done one, or I've done these two tasks today, and you can see what you want to do next, rather than, getting distracted or losing that motivation because you don't know what you want to do next.
Yeah. Returning to that though, that whole sort of being able to tick something off a list, or being able to set a goal or a task and being able to achieve it. To sort of provide like maybe a bit more insight into it, or for people that like maybe don't know, when we actually do these kind of things, when we are able to tick things off lists and stuff, it sort of gives our brain like a little bit of a dopamine hit, which is like sort of like that happy feeling, that feeling of achievement, like, and it's something that we can actually like measure and see and things like that. So the benefits of doing these kind of to-do lists is that you are like being able to see what you're achieving, and your brain can recognize that and be like happy because it's seeing that like things are being done, or you're getting that little dopamine hit that your brain thinks, oh well, I should keep doing this because it makes me feel good. It's like actually a thing.
Yeah. No, totally. And I guess the other thing to consider is like, it's okay to like, whilst it's good to keep that level of structure as well, it's also okay to be flexible and understand that like it's okay to have a bad day, and like what you're doing is something new. Like you probably haven't, you probably never, unless you've been homeschooled before, you probably haven't spent, like days on end learning for hours and hours at home. Like it's a very different situation, and letting yourself, taking a break when you need to, and being flexible and not being hard on yourself when you have an off day, like is important. And if you let those bad days get to you and you don't give yourself the opportunity to breathe, that can be quite demotivating in itself. So giving yourself a little bit of freedom, and also making the effort to, like at school, like you have time in between classes, you have, a 1 hour lunch break, a half hour morning tea, whatever.
Yeah.
Like make sure you should, like those are great opportunities to just, step away from school, reset your mind and just relax for a minute. And you should definitely make sure you're still doing things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it can be easy to forget the stuff when you're like, you think, oh, I have to do school from home and I have to focus and I have to get all this stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting as well for like being able to see your parents working from home as well. Like if you can see that, because it's something that everyone struggles with. Like it's not just us as like young adults or like teenagers or students or whatever word you want to give to it. Like it's something that everyone is experiencing right now. And it's hard for ourselves. And so we have to be easy and be able to forgive ourselves if, we aren't as productive one day, because inherently we're all in this like super unusual situation, which seems, a little bit reserved for like a generic movie plot at this stage, but it's sort of the reality of what it is for us. And I think it's the exact kind of scenario where we should be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's, yeah, I think it's really important because, yeah, if you're not used to working from home, like, of course you're not going to be good at something you've never done before. So definitely
Yeah.
being flexible, but then, resetting, trying again, using strategies, like making like a plan for your day of what you want to achieve.
Mm.
And like going back to those kind of tried and true strategies that everyone talks about, but it's just because they sound cliche, like doesn't mean they're not effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually asked you guys on Instagram as well about the kinds of things that maybe are keeping you motivated, or the things that you are doing around this time, and the challenges that you're finding with your motivation. And so there are a few different ideas here. So we're just going to like run through a few of them together and maybe discuss them a little bit more in depth. So one of the sort of first ones in terms of what's keeping you motivated was about having parents being able to watch you while you work a lot. It's no longer like a 30 on one kind of scenario in a classroom. It's kind of maybe you, like your siblings, and there are those who maybe won't have their parents like being able to see your work directly, but there are some who may be feeling that a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this was one thing that like, so I'm at home. My mum is here. My mum is working from home, but like I didn't really think about it in the way that like it really depends on what your parents are like. But definitely, if you feel like your parents are constantly watching you, that can kind of like impede your progress as well.
Yeah.
I guess like a few things to consider is like where you're studying. Obviously, depending on like your household setup, like that can
Mm.
be you might be able to
Mm.
find a very good place, or you might be in a more distracting environment. And I guess
Yeah.
probably the best, if say you're in that worst case, or less ideal scenario, I guess one thing that could be useful is, talking to your parents and being like, this is, like, this is the time I work. And maybe even making an effort to, like, at the end of the day or like at lunchtime, telling them a little bit about what you've worked on. And that way you
Mm.
give them because I know, like, I think everyone's a bit like this. Like, your parents ask, like, what did you be like? Oh, nothing, English.
Yeah.
Like full stop, and that's it. But like by
Yeah.
leveraging that opportunity at lunch or at dinner to like tell them a little bit about what you're doing, you might find that they are like, oh, Saeran's actually like done a lot of stuff today. So you might find
Mm.
that by doing that, they back off a little bit. And during the day when you're actually doing work, you feel like they're not bugging you as much.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That's a good idea. Um, on a similar note with that, siblings,
Yes,
uh, very fun because you're also at home with your sibling.
I am. Yeah. Siblings, very fun. I mean, if you can work in your room and close the door, that's sometimes effective, not always. If you can pretend to be on video conferences, that's another effective strategy. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm
I
sure
hope
people
you.
have various sibling control strategies. Stress balls work well.
Yeah, I shared a room with my sister when I was in high
Oh
school, so
yeah.
I just couldn't even imagine the kind of just crimes to be committed of a violent nature I could imagine. Um, we're fine, by the way. Like we get along very well. Sharing such an enclosed space with anybody is a very
Yeah.
trying thing.
Definitely like
Um,
trying to
yeah,
like find a space, like even if it is any common area,
mm,
trying to like make that your space and
yeah,
using like signals of when you don't want to be distracted, things like headphones,
yeah,
and like, like actually paying attention and like being on your laptop or like with your pad rather than, being on your phone, or
mm,
if you can like sitting at like a dining room table rather than like on a kitchen countertop, like little things like that can make a big difference.
mm,
Just like trying to
yeah,
really think like what's the most ideal and least distracting
yeah,
environment I can find in my house.
yeah.
Outside, if it's a
And
warm day and you have a table outside,
Hmm.
why not?
I know for me that it actually depends on the time of the day as to
Mm.
like where is the most suitable place for me to work. Like, and more towards the evenings, if I have to do work, I'm more inclined to like go to my own room than to actually be in the more communal spaces, just because they're like more busy. People have other stuff going on in the evening, and so like it's just easier for me to like remove myself from the situation, I guess. So yeah, like
If you have
again,
younger
like space
siblings
is
who are
very
less engaged
important.
with school, I feel for you. If you have older siblings and parents, most of them probably have something, at least something to like
Keep them
entertain
amused.
themselves with.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so yeah, separation I think is a really important thing there, and having your own space is really
And
important
not
there.
distracting your, like, if you distract your siblings, like, they're probably going to distract you back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, you take what you get.
Yeah.
Um, but on the flip side, some of the other things that have actually been motivating people have like, and maybe a little bit more of a positive light, is the sort of different kinds of things to bear in mind, and particularly when like thinking towards the long term, like working for future you, I guess. And so one of them being like working to either like catch up in class if you're unsure of some content, or you need to go back and like revise something, or even just like going ahead in your work and doing stuff that will benefit future you, will make it easier for you in the long term. And on that note of what you were talking about before, Saeran, with like making goals, is sort of like keeping them in mind, and bearing in mind that these are things that you want to achieve and that you've set out for yourself. Because I think when we sort of like forget about those goals, it's much more easier to become demotivated, because we just sort of think, oh well, it's hard, I don't want to do it. So yeah, like thinking again, and bearing in mind those goals and things that you have, and making sure that it's something that is like present in your mind and you can return to. Like, even if you, I don't know, like made a sticky note on your computer that you opened up and it said something like, I don't know, like, this is like your goal, because it is easier to forget it. So I think maybe even like keeping it physically somewhere can help.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, writing that stuff down, I find is essential, especially when you're working at home all day. Like,
Yeah.
you can do a lot
Yeah.
in 7 hours, and it's very hard to think of everything in the morning and remember it for the entire day.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. And then another thing in terms of the sort of like motivational challenges and stuff with, being at home at the moment, and particularly now that we've gone into like distance learning, is sort of taking for granted how easy it is to sort of be able to ask quick questions in class to either like your peers or your teacher, or someone who can like easily give you the answer. In a discussion sort of based manner, obviously. You can still Google stuff. Google. COVID doesn't hurt Google. But, that is like that sort of accessibility and that lack of that sort of drop off, I guess, of a support channel that we sort of rely on a lot, regardless of how much like smack we talk about our teachers, is definitely, it can be super impeding, and it can make you sort of feel more hesitant to want to like go out and try and learn things, because you don't feel like you've got much to support you in being able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts around
I
that,
think
Saeran?
it's like, yeah, I think it's like important to remember that like in this situation, like communication does not come as naturally as it usually does. Like, as you just said, you can't lean over and like ask your mate next to you, and you can't, ask the teachers they're walking around the class. So I think it is about, even though it might feel a bit awkward because it is a bit different, like going to the effort of, if you have a question as you would in class, like instead of just letting it go, like making the effort to, message a friend or email a teacher. Most teachers are still like pretty active,
Yeah.
responding to emails and like on Zoom or whatever. So I'm sure like teachers have made you aware of the ways you can get in touch with them, and definitely like obviously under usual circumstances you wouldn't send your teacher an email for like every weird question, but like at the moment like it's not an unreasonable thing to do because you don't
No.
have another opportunity to raise that with them. So definitely,
Yeah.
even though it might not be something you usually do, emailing your teacher, like take advantage of those opportunities. They're there for you. And like,
Yeah.
if you want to have an effective distance learning experience, it's a necessary evil.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think we have to go on too much about ways that students can stay in touch with their peers. Like, I'm pretty sure they got that covered.
Yeah.
Um,
But like, even if
and
you and your mates don't usually talk about skill, like it's
yeah,
fine
no,
to
yeah,
like,
and
yeah,
yeah, that's yeah.
9 to
And I
5
know like
only.
people have
No,
been
no
using,
skill after 5 o'clock. I say.
and I know people have been using Discord for things like study sessions and study groups, or as well as, obviously Zoom and stuff. But, Discord's something that's probably a little bit more accessible or intuitive to students. But yeah, so like utilizing those channels, but actually using them for like being social and like seeing your friends and making sure that they're okay and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But being able to support each other and having those discussions about like learning and stuff as well, and checking in with them and seeing how they're going in that regard can be super helpful. I know I relied on my like friends a lot at school.
100%. I think that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah. Short and sweet. Not sure. That's fine. Cool. So we'll be back tomorrow with another video. I don't think I'll be here actually, but Saeran will still be here. So again, feel free to let us know the other kinds of things you want us to talk about in the future, and we'll post more questions in our stories in the coming weeks for future episodes. So thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.